Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
You got Goose.
That's good. I could have been Iceman.
You're my no
Maverick.
You're Maverick. I'm Goose.
I like Iceman though. That's a cooler name.
But that's
anyways,
you're the worst.
A number of write-ins have asked for this one. We're taking a look at the Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird.
That is such a cool name.
Fun fact for you to start this out.
Shoot.
This is not in fact a bird at all. It is an airplane. Yeah.
My research is I did it on blackbirds, crows. This isn't going to work today.
This is going to be an interesting topic.
This is not going to work today.
Okay, so where it all began, Luke.
How it all started. Do you want that how it started, or like what are you talking about how it started?
I was going to talk about some presidents.
Okay, I was going to talk about some incidents that happened.
Oh, we can get to that too.
Okay.
Oh, I guess I'm going to be talking about that as well. Is that okay? You can chime in.
Okay.
How about that?
You got
All right. So I saw two things. One, I saw it was President Eisenhower who requested this.
Dwight.
And I also saw that I forgot you guys are good friends.
We're boys.
I also saw that it was Lyndon Johnson who requested it. But I think I figured it out. But I think I'm going to go with Eisenhower since that's what LockheedMartin.com said. My understanding now that I did the research is that Eisenhower started it and Johnson was around when it started to be used. How about that?
Gotcha.
Okay, so here's how the story goes from my understanding.
Alrighty.
A guy named Gary Powers, which that's a sweet name.
That is an awesome name.
He was flying around in a U-2 aircraft and it was disabled. It was hit by a Soviet surface-to-air missile, and the plane fell from 70,000 feet to 30,000 feet before he was able to release himself and bail out of the damaged plane.
So keep in mind, this is an enormous, relatively slow-moving, huge wingspan plane that would fly at crazy high altitude. And obviously the Russians didn't. We weren't supposed to be there.
Turns out, yeah. I thought this was funny. I wrote this myself, I'm sure. This was when the Cold War was heating up.
See what you did there.
Pretty good.
Ooh, you're good.
So that was May 1st. The 1960.
Yeah.
Day before my birthday.
Yeah, and supposedly like the U.S. government was like, oh, we weren't doing anything. It was just whatever. And then the Russians showed pictures of like the pilot, the surveillance equipment, all that sort of stuff, and they were
aliens.
They were like, oh, yeah.
About that. He wasn't supposed to be doing that. So Eisenhower was all like, oh, man, that's a bummer.
It is.
He's like, we need to do something better. And so he calls up his buddies at Lockheed, who just so happened to be working on a Skunk Works project, just for a situation like this, just in case.
What's the Skunk Work? Skunks Works. Let's say that 10 times.
Do you not know Skunk Works?
I do, but I wanted you to describe it. You're supposed to play along with me here.
Oh,
I know what Skunk Works is.
It's like a under the radar kind of project.
Covert.
Covert is a good word for it. Okay, I like that.
Lockheed had a whole division that just did Skunk Works stuff. Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yeah,
they got. I'm sure they got bugs in our office here.
Probably, because we're so important. So the president has this small little ask. He says, give me a plane that can fly faster than any aircraft before.
Mach 3 plus.
At greater altitude.
90,000 feet.
And with a minimal radar cross-section.
How hard could that be to do?
Piece of cake, yeah. So Kelly Johnson, who is one of the top aircraft designers of all time, maybe still is, what do I know?
He's dead.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Kelly. Along with his team, took on the challenge, and they were actually the ones who also delivered on the U-2 as well.
Yep.
So they had some experience. Apparently, you know about Clarence Kelly Johnson.
So Clarence, a.k.a. Kelly Johnson, he was born February 27th, 1910, and he actually didn't die all that long ago, December 21st, 1990. He is
30 years ago, Luke.
Well,
that's almost my entire life.
Well, I remember the 90s, so that's...
1990?
Yeah, I remember
I guess I remember 19. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
He's a University of Michigan graduate. Go Mud Ducks.
Big Ten. Wolverines. You know that one.
I don't know.
You really don't know that?
I don't know any. I don't know any
Penn
mascots.
State?
Mud Ducks.
Mud Ducks. Okay. Pitt?
It's a Mud Duck.
Okay, Mud Duck.
Sorry. So have you ever heard of the KISS principle?
No.
So KISS is keep it simple, stupid.
Oh, yeah, I have
heard
heard
of
of
that
that.
before.
Yeah. I don't use that word, but yes.
I don't either, because
Simple.
that's...
I don't use that word.
Yeah, I don't use any of those words.
Okay.
But apparently, Johnson is actually credited with being the originator of that like terminology, and so he started out at Lockheed as a machinist.
Okay.
So he came out of Michigan State, started at
University
Lockheed.
of Michigan. That's totally different.
Yeah, University of Michigan. Go Mud Ducks. So he started out there as a machinist, and here they were working on a plane, and he was like, "Yeah, this thing is wrong. You need to fix it." And they actually said, "Okay, go
You're
back."
so smart. You do it.
Yeah, so he does. Okay. He fixes this, and then he goes from being basically, a guy working on the shop floor, doing like machine type work, and he ends up running the Skunks Work operation for a number of years, and that's where this idea of keep it simple, stupid. He had this idea of down to brass tacks. It was always like his motto was it needs to be quick, quiet, and on time.
What's like are tacks made out of brass?
I don't know. I don't know that one.
I've heard it before.
I have too.
I've probably said it before.
I think it's like, oh, let's get down to brass. I think that's like the bare bones.
But
like
why brass tacks? Not like
steel.
Aluminum or steel, aluminium tacks.
Did you just say aluminium?
Yeah, that's how you say it. I'm from the Queen.
Oh,
Queen.
That's the mother tongue.
The mother tongue.
Okay.
Okay. So, anyways, this fancy new plane is supposed to be able to go over, 2,000 miles per hour, right?
Yeah.
Which it was possible at the time from other planes,
but they could only do it.
Yeah, super short amounts of time.
Like a minute or 2 minutes.
Sustainable for hours with this plane.
Apparently, like the Russian MiGs were crazy fast, but they could only sustain like Mach 3.1 for like a couple of minutes.
Okay. So what's the problem with all of this, Luke? Friction in the atmosphere.
Why would friction be a problem?
It creates really high temperatures and makes things melty, like normal airframes melt, which is no good because they're going over like 1,000 degrees.
You can't have your plane. Actually, there was a story I heard that whenever they were doing some initial testing, that the actual plane disintegrated around the pilot. Like this was before they found the material that they needed to use, and they were doing some testing, and basically the pilot had to eject as the plane was just like melting.
That's so funny. So this is my favorite part of the whole episode that we're going to do. So easy solution to the melting problem, right? You just use titanium.
How hard could that be?
It's a little bit of a sensitive material to build the airplane around.
Where are the major deposits, James?
I don't know. Oh, I do. I don't want to tell them that.
Oh,
yet,
okay.
Hold on.
I'm leading you.
No, thank you. Hold on. So the brittle alloy shattered if it was mishandled. It meant a whole bunch of frustration for the assembly line.
Had to make brand new tools.
They had to make new tools out of so the cadmium plated steel tools, no good. They had to make titanium
to work on titanium.
To work on titanium. They had to take all new training classes and all of that stuff. But the fun fact, this is the best.
This is funny.
So anticipating the need for titanium and considering how difficult it was to come across at the time, the CIA, which also oversaw the development of the Blackbird's predecessor, the A-12 Ox Cart, which is not nearly as cool of a name, set up shell companies abroad to purchase titanium from the USSR.
That was the best.
That is so funny.
Because apparently one of the places where a lot of titanium comes from, or the ore or whatever it is that they were using, comes from Mother Russia.
Yeah, Mother Russia is making all the titanium, and the U.S. is scooping it up. So
can you imagine? They're like, boo, 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 boo. Yeah, let's give this to, Bill's Manufacturing. And, and here it's going right to the CIA.
That was unbelievable. That was my favorite thing that I saw.
I thought that was pretty interesting, too.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the original Blackbird was designated the A-12, and the A-12...
Is this the one that melted, you think?
No. The melted was like whenever they were... This was the first like production-ready, made with titanium plane.
Okay, gotcha.
So the first maiden voyage, so this wasn't the Blackbird, this was the A-12, made its first flight on April 30th, 1962. Isn't that crazy?
That is really very crazy. One more thing before we take our first break. This is kind of a fun fact going along with things. So friction generates all sorts of heat, right? Mm-hmm. Especially on the leading edges of the aircraft. The ambient temperature outside of the cockpit window, though, would be minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit, which Turns out that's pretty cold. I don't want to be outside in that. Ben Rich was one of the engineers trying to solve this problem of heat dissipation and basically across the whole frame, so not just in certain areas, right? And he remembers, hey, you know what? Black paint emits and absorbs heat. Blammo, you paint this sucker black, and the Blackbird name shows up.
The Blackbird is born.
Yes, it is born. That's a pretty cool story. Okay, before we move on, I think it's time that we take a break for a word from our sponsor.
Lockheed Martin, thank you very much. No. This one of these days, I'm going to say this, and it's going to be correct that we actually have a sponsor.
I interviewed at one of these places. I think it was Northrop.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, way back in the day.
For what? Janitorial?
Something I was certainly not qualified to do, and I did not get the job. Yeah, it was no good. But anyways, no, we don't have a sponsor, but we do have some shout-outs. Number 1, Dan O.
Good old Danny.
Dan O. A fan for a few months and wanted some info on mechanical engineering technology versus mechanical engineering. So I guess it would be more like associates versus a bachelor degree. I did my best to try not to mislead Dan too much. Hopefully I did not. I said make sure you do your research on your own, though. I do have a friend who did the tech route, so I do have a little bit of an understanding, but hopefully I wasn't too misleading.
Disclaimer, most everything we say advice-wise is wrong.
Yeah.
Just disclaimer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. I can't dispute that. But by not disputing it, does that mean I'm wrong? Okay. So now I'm going to intentionally do this. Syra K, but it's not. It's not Sierra either. So I knew I wasn't going to read ahead. It's pronounced Kira, because Kira is a good Irish girl.
Oh.
Much like one James.
Keira Knightley.
Keira Knightley.
But Keira Knightley spells with a K, I think.
I think so. Well, Kira spells it C-I-A-R-A. So I don't know Irish. I'm Irish as well, so I like you. But she's an Irish girl from Hawaii, it seems.
What's that all about?
I bet she burns a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like Irish and all that heat. Okay, anyways, Kira writes in and tells us that back in the day when she was a kid, she was all into the engineerings, right?
That's good.
And then she quit on all of that. And then she became a lawyer. So it kind of sounds like my wife. She always claimed that, like, she was good at math, which I don't believe, but she claims that, and that no one ever told her that engineering was even a thing. So she became a lawyer.
Well, in their defense, recent history, women and young girls haven't been pushed into the engineering and tech fields. I think we're making strides with that now, but back in the day,
we're trying to.
We are.
Personally.
We are.
Yeah. She'd love an episode on British funnies, as they were calling their wacky wartime inventions, which I would like that as well. So if you could also do an episode, this is funny, explaining why my Bluetooth headset connection to my phone starts failing when someone in the office turns on the microwave nearby. That would be great, too.
So Bluetooth technology, that's a good one. How have we not done that yet?
I don't know. We're bad at stuff. Okay. People haven't been writing in. So if you want to support us with good ideas instead of the ones we come up with, why don't you write into unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
Subscribe, like us, review us.
Give us a review. I will send you stickers if you want them. They're amazing. I owe a lot of people stickers once again. I'm really bad at that. But yeah, make sure you subscribe, review, and email us because it makes my day. I know it takes me weeks to get back to you sometimes, but I swear I read them all. All right, moving back onward to the Blackbird.
So 85% of the Blackbird is made of titanium. The rest, the majority, I'm sure there's some other metal in it somewhere, but from what I read, the rest of it is polymer composite materials.
Yeah. That's impressive.
That's very impressive. And think about when they were doing this. Like, you and I are CAD guys and engineering nerds. We work for a big software company.
It's true.
And we think about like how difficult it is to design and engineer things with 3D software. Can you imagine doing this like back in like the 50s and 60s with like a pencil?
Ugh,
Are you kidding me? And a calculator and a slide rule?
Hate those things too. I've never seen a slide rule in person.
Really?
Yeah. I know, it's terrible. Okay, what about radar? You want to talk about radar?
I got more on the design. Could we do a little bit more on the design?
No, we can't.
Okay.
No,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
The design. So, major portions of the skin. I didn't know this on the inboard
I don't like
wing.
that it's called skin.
they're actually corrugated.
Really?
So,
That's weird.
And the reason they do that is because of when stuff gets hot. What does it do, James?
I just burnt my mouth on hot coffee. Thanks.
It expands. Your face just expanded because of the hot coffee. So when things get hot, they expand. If they had a smooth skin, the temperature increases so much from whatever ambient is to 500, 600, 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit that if the skin was smooth, it would actually tear and crack. So portions of that are corrugated to allow it to stretch.
Interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
And the fuselage panels, so the panels that are like hanging on basically the substructure, they say that they're on there loosely, literally with like in some cases inches of clearance, because when this thing comes up to full temperature, the overall length increases by several inches. Because of the heat increase, now it's not always that hot, but when it's at Mach 3 at 90,000 feet or whatever it is, it actually grows multiple inches in all directions.
See, again, now this happens a lot because I'm not that smart, but you start hearing about this, and it's like Chip Kelly or whatever his name was, Chip
Kelly Johnson.
He even if he's not the one that came up with all of this, these people are so much smarter than me. It just hurts my brain.
I think they're so much smarter than like everybody.
I know, it blows my mind. Who comes up with this?
They're doing all of this without computing power that we have, and to this day, fun fact, the Blackbird, it's still the fastest airplane in the world.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's bananas.
It's bananas.
That's right.
Nothing has beaten the Blackbird in speed.
I bet I would be close.
I've seen you run. It is like the wind.
It really is.
Like the wind.
It is like that.
Oh,
more
goodness.
design stuff?
No, that's all I had.
Radar. Okay. Surfaces had to be designed to avoid reflecting radar signals. I think this is very fascinating. The engines moved to a mid-wing position, and the radar-absorbing element was added to a paint. Specifically, ferrite particles were added to the paint to help with this. Then a full-scale model of the Blackbird was hoisted on a pylon for radar testing at the old Skunk Works facility in Nevada. And this is super cool. The tests were performed and scheduled very carefully to avoid Soviet satellite observations.
Oh, they knew Sputnik was flying over.
Yeah, when it's happening. Yeah. That's creepy. There's creepy levels of things. Obviously, the government knows everything about me they'd possibly want to know. But the results were super impressive. The Blackbird model, more than 100 feet in length, would appear on Soviet radar as bigger than a bird, but smaller than a person.
So they wouldn't think it was an airplane.
Yeah, what is that? It's just like a big bird,
yep.
Right? Or maybe it's Big Bird if he can fly. I don't know if he can. The team had succeeded in reducing the radar cross-section by 90%. So everything's going great, right? Not so much. We need this thing done faster because in October 27th of 1962, at the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis, Air Force Major Rudolph Anderson was piloting another U-2 on a reconnaissance mission over Cuba and suffered a fatal injury from the Soviet surface-to-air strike. So, no good. So, the president's like, yo, we need this faster.
Yep.
That's exactly what he said. It's a quote. Yo, we need this faster.
Yo.
The Blackbird achieved sustainable speeds above Mach 3 on July 20th, 1963, at an astounding 78,000 feet. That's pretty high up there.
That's ridiculous.
It really is. That's really crazy. Fun fact for all of you out there, though. Mach 3 is 2,301.81 miles per hour. So that's pretty fast.
It's not bad.
And fun fact, too, for you, it's not bad. If you hear Mach something and you don't know what we're talking about, just multiply it, meaning the speed of sound, by 3 for an approximate result. Right? That doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make sense.
Multiply it by, I think it's like 700 and something. I can do the calculations right now. So you continue on while I fix my mistake.
Okay, so some other interesting things about the design. To get
767.
Okay. To get the engines to maintain this Mach speed, if you look at the engines, there's these little pointy cones that stick out. And when this is at like normal cruising speed, so Mach 1, Mach 2, whatever it is.
Did you almost fall over?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
the cone is out and it's running like a traditional turbine engine. Whenever this thing hits Mach 3 turbine, when this thing needs to do like Mach 3 and like really be moving, it actually pushes the cone in, and the incoming air bypasses the traditional turbine and goes to where the afterburner's coming out, and it acts as and it gives it more thrust, and that's what allows to have that maintained thrust. So just the engine design itself and the way the engines operate are totally different than a traditional, turbine engine.
Yeah, that is it's crazy.
It's called a ram jet. So ram air, like those of you car enthusiasts, so like a ram air is when you ram cold air in to an intake, and because you have this cold air, it gives you more power. Basically the same thing. So at the back end of the engine, they would ram the cold air in and faster.
Nice. So I'm going to go back and clarify my multiplication stuff.
Shoot.
What I should have been telling you is that when you hear Mach, you take that Mach number and multiply that by the speed of sound. So the speed of sound, I'm guessing, is like 767.
Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood.
So times 3 would give us what we're talking about.
Gotcha.
All right, before we move on any further, I think it's time for us to take a break for this week's Luke's Rant.
And how can we be talking about airplanes and not bring up Tom Cruise?
That's a great point, Luke. Him and his big center tooth.
I never noticed.
Yeah, he has one center, one front tooth.
So I am an enormous Top Gun fan. So when Top Gun came out, I wanted to join the Navy and be a naval aviator, and I wanted to, I was too small and too dumb and colorblind and all kinds of problems.
You have a lot going against you.
There was a lot going against me. And I loved that movie. One of my all-time favorite movies. And the whole Goose and Maverick and Iceman. It was amazing.
Who was the other one? Merlin?
Merlin. Merlin flew with Iceman.
Yeah.
Loved that movie. So just recently, I saw some previews. It hasn't been out in theaters yet, depending on when this gets released. I saw previews for Top Gun 2. And it's just like, really... I just feel like there's just certain things you leave alone.
If
there's
they don't play topless volleyball, I'm gonna be
in the previews.
so
In the previews there was topless volleyball.
Oh, thank goodness.
Men's topless volleyball. But yeah, it's just like I think there's just certain movies that you just leave.
I agree.
Like Karate Kid, perfect example. You just got to leave that movie there.
You didn't like Will Smith's kid doing that?
They did Kung Fu. It should have been the Kung Fu Kid. It wasn't the Karate Kid. He was teaching them Kung Fu and.
I didn't give them my money.
I wish I didn't.
Yeah.
So I like Tom Cruise as an actor. He's a pretty good actor. He's really short though. He's shorter than me.
He's very short.
Very short. He's shorter than me.
That. He's a nut.
But I just feel like I don't know. I feel like there's certain movies, and that's like one of those historical military movies that you just leave alone.
I'm not a big Top Gun fan. And I won't be seeing Top Gun.
Kelly McGinnis?
I won't be seeing Top Gun. I mean, clearly I know enough about it that I even know their little code names or whatever they call them. But,
it's ingrained in our culture.
Me.
Like, Iceman, Goose, and Maverick.
I was too young, I think, when it was going on. I'm not as old as you. But, yeah, I see what you're saying. I agree. There's certain movies that should never be redone. The Princess Bride should be left alone.
It should be.
So leave everything good alone.
That's my top 10.
Is it?
It is.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Here we go.
I had a friend who wanted to be a pilot as well.
Okay.
And he was not colorblind and all that, but he was too tall. They were like, yep, too tall, sorry.
You're out.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting.
Okay.
I mean, he was freakishly tall, so... did you see that the first operational flight didn't take place until 1968 during the Vietnam War? I thought that was kind of interesting.
Another fun fact.
Ooh, let's hear it.
The U.S. government claims...
Uh-oh. I don't know how this is going.
If you're not watching on video, I'm doing air quotes with my fingers. They claim that since that U-2 incident that happened...
Bono?
No.
Oh.
That happened where it got shot down in Russia. They claim they were so afraid of issues in the future that they never flew a Blackbird over Russian soil.
Oh, of course they
had like side angle radar where it could like fly like around Russia and just kind of do a side eye kind of look in. I guarantee you they did.
I'd be surprised if they've ever flown a Blackbird outside of U.S. soil. Well, other than Vietnam.
So
that I just said.
first of all, up until like just a few years ago, like there wasn't any missiles. Even if you did fly over Russia, there was nothing that could shoot the thing down. It was moving at Mach 3.3.
Fun fact for you, Luke. Would you like this?
I'd love it.
The Blackbird evaded all 4,000 missiles fired at it, and to this day remains the only Air Force aircraft to never lose a crew member associated with it, whether in the air or on the ground.
Follow-up to that, its reliability, on the other hand, was an issue. And of the 32 SR-71s that were built, 12 of them were lost in accidents.
Yeah, I was gonna get into that a little bit later here. I'll hold on to that.
Okay,
but it's creepy. How
I got
bad
some
that
numbers. Ready?
Yeah.
They made 13 of the A-12s, the original Blackbird, whatever you call it, the Ox Box or whatever you called it.
Ox Box. That's what it's called now.
They made 3 that were called YF-12s. These were supposedly more tactical. They put some missiles and some different things on them. They made 2 what they called M-12s, which had a mount for one of the first drones, so you could launch a drone from this thing.
Really?
It's like a little piggyback thing.
That's cool.
They only made 2 of them, and then they sacked it. And they made 32 of the SR 71s for a total of 50 Blackbirds. They weren't all called Blackbirds, but that style. There was a total of 50 of them made.
I really hate when there's like a whole bunch of birds in a tree. That creeps me out.
You know how much these things cost?
No.
33 billion each.
No. 33 billion? I guess titanium isn't cheap from Russia.
And apparently, like, flying these things, it's not like, hey, let's go take the Blackbird for a flight. It's like there's a whole crew. It's like a NASA launch when these things go up. Like the coordination, the fuel, the maintenance, the crew. They were, because they don't run them anymore. That is exceptionally expensive to operate.
Huh, interesting. Speaking of, it's like NASA, fun fact, NASA actually used the SR-71 for testing
They
purposes.
gave them some.
Yeah. As space travel wasn't really a big thing back then, the SR-71 operating environment made the aircraft really good for carrying out research and experiments in a variety of areas like aerodynamics, propulsion, structures, thermal protection materials, and how things react at really high temperatures, like instruments and things like that. So NASA was using this to get information on how to proceed with the space program. So that's pretty cool. Thanks a lot, SR-71.
Another fun fact?
Oh, I need a fun fact right now.
So on its retirement flight from
this is good, yeah.
Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. in 1990, this was the last flight of the Blackbird before it stopped in its final resting place, the Smithsonian Air and Space Collection. I've never seen this thing. I want to go see it.
Yeah.
It took 67 minutes to go coast to coast.
Yeah. Top speed?
2,193 miles an hour. Could you just imagine? It amazes me that hasn't trickled down.
Minutes.
This thing was made.
Well, we had the Concorde?
Yeah,
is that
but
it? And then
the
that
Concorde
failed.
wasn't even this fast.
Well, no, it wasn't. But yeah, that's amazing.
An hour, basically, coast to coast. Could you imagine that nowadays?
Yeah, I wish. Oh my gosh.
And this thing was thing was built in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, but we wouldn't be able to handle that. No. Our bodies wouldn't.
Speaking of, I have a quote. I have to read it. So this is a quote from one of the pilots.
Yeah, I saw this.
At 58,000 feet in Mach 3, it's almost a religious experience. This was from Air Force Colonel Jim Wadkins. Nothing had prepared me to fly that fast. My God, even now I get goosebumps remembering.
Yeah, that's crazy. And this is like...
He's a pilot.
They went through like finding the best of the best pilots. Like it was a whole thing to get the people that were going to pilot these planes.
Like Tom Cruise would fly it.
Tom Cruise would probably fly 2 of them at the same time. So something I never thought of that was really interesting, but flying at these crazy speeds that were never really done before, you would actually have to change the way you judge distances to maneuver. So instead of looking at things like rivers and highways, those are going by so quickly that now you have to look at mountain ranges or coastlines or like giant bodies of water to be able to even understand where you're traveling to. That's craziness. When anti-aircraft weapons were fired, a warning light would glow red from the control panel, but that would typically be the last the pilot would see of an attempted attack because the surface-to-air missiles were so slow compared to these things that it might light up red and then just be gone, and they would miss by miles and miles from where they were supposed to be getting hit at. And then one other thing I wanted to talk about, and this was the safety thing that you talked about. So SR-71 pilots used to say, like half joking, that unstarts were the Blackbird's way of punishing them for letting their attention wander to the magnificent views from 80,000 feet. And so an unstart could erupt during like a steeply banked turn. So if you were turning too hard at those speeds, when airflow within the engine's finely tuned inlet was disrupted, it would result in a sudden and drastic loss of thrust, which must make you just, I don't know, feel like you're going to die immediately.
Yeah.
Unstarts could be violent enough to slam a pilot's head against the cockpit wall, even as he was struggling to get control of the aircraft again. Yikes. No thank you. You said it retired in 1990?
1990 was its last flight.
Oh, my goodness. Very impressive.
Yeah, I'm still really surprised. Like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, like all these companies that make like current aircrafts, like more current ones that they're developing. I'm just stunned that like still the fastest airplane is something that was designed in like the 50s and 60s.
I would bet that there's something out there.
Oh, they're not telling us.
Yeah.
I guarantee you.
Like one of the spaceships they've developed or stolen from aliens, mostly.
Check out our aliens episode.
That's right. Oh, yeah, I forgot we did an aliens episode.
This was fun. I enjoyed
UFOs.
this one more than I thought.
I really enjoyed it as well. I enjoy all of our episodes.
We're going to get a lot of
together.
poo-poos on this, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Because
there's a lot of
people in
fanboys
our
out
military
there.
history.
Yeah.
And I bet you Jay will be all over us.
Ugh.
I guarantee you.
He's the worst.
He is.
Okay, hopefully you all
miss you,
learned
Jay.
something about the SR-71. We do miss you, Jay. If you have something that you'd like to yell at us about it, or just say good job or nice try, or just send Luke a picture, whatever, email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. Until next time.
See ya.